Hey guys, Scott here with After Hours Automotive. Today we're looking at a 1999 Saab 9.3. It's a 2.0 liter turbo, and we're here today to beat a dead horse. From all the research I did, we'll give you a little background. This customer was traveling from South Georgia to Mississippi to pick someone up for the holidays and bring them back to South Georgia. They got all the way to Mississippi, got the person, and came and got halfway back through Georgia, and the car shut off on the side of the road and wouldn't start back. The customer said they had had issues with it cutting off before, but it would start back, and that this was the first time it shut off and didn't start back at all. When we got a hold of the car, I did a couple of spark tests, try to listen for the fuel pump. Apparently on this car the pump doesn't run unless the ignition is turning, or when you turn it off. It doesn't prime it when you turn the key on, it seems to me. But we were looking through to see about fuel, and at first I was skeptical of the fuel pump because of the it not priming when you turn the key on. But ended up finding that there was fuel pressure. I disconnected. If you go back here under the passenger rear door, there's a fuel filter right there that you can take the nut off of on the engine side and verify fuel pressure, because it's kind of a pain to get to anywhere to test fuel pressure on this fuel rail. But in any case, determined that we did have fuel pressure, and started moving on to ignition. Now, my customer, I noticed this when I first looked at it, but my customer verified that not long ago, while they were having their issues with the car shutting off, and then she described that it would shut off but that it would start back up, that they had spark plugs and an ignition coil put on. So I get in here and I find that, in fact, they did have an ignition coil put on, and it has right here, it says PP Sweden. I don't know if you can see that. So I mean, I figured, it's a Swedish part. It says it's from Sweden. Maybe it's original. I don't know. Well, I was apt to dismiss the ignition coil as the failure because they had already replaced it recently, and there I go, losing my light. They had replaced it recently, and I wasn't getting spark, and we ended up putting a crank sensor on it, and even though the RPMs were jumping with the old crank sensor on, you can see where the wiring was damaged, and it was just cracked and all, and I just went ahead and replaced this. But still there was no start, and we hooked the spark plugs to the negative battery terminal and checked for spark, and there was an occasional small spark, and then at the end on the Saab website diagnostic for the ignition coil, it says it'll make a shower of sparks at the end once you turn the key off, which it did. So I was under the impression that it just wasn't receiving signal during cranking, but that the ignition coil was operative because of the shower of sparks that it made whenever you turn the ignition off. But that seems to not be the case, cause went ahead and picked up a new ignition coil from this one's actually from O'Reilly's. But when I was looking on online to see about getting a new one and what the experiences people had with them and all that, they mentioned to get a SEM brand. And again, I just ordered this one from O'Reilly, but it happens to be an SEM Saab original part, and sure enough, the car fired, and it ran just fine. So just a dead horse. Just because you have a new ignition coil doesn't necessarily mean it's not the ignition coil. I was hesitant to condemn this one and have the customer spend however much it ended up costing, which this ignition coil was surprisingly cheap at O'Reilly Auto Parts. It was less than $100. And everyone on the forum said that it was going to be like $700 and all this. So after pulling all this relay box and getting in here to the main relay down here, got the main relay and the fuel pump relay and the starter ignition switch relay and all of that, checked all the fuses, and finally bit the bullet and put the ignition coil in here, and sure enough, runs like a champ. Get a little, I'm not kidding, going on here. Fire that up, sailor. And there it is. Doesn't sound all that healthy, but for a 99 with a bunch of miles on it, I guess it's not so bad. But it probably is your ignition coil. Look, hey sailor, go ahead and cut that off. Just take your ignition module there and put all your spark plugs in the ignition module, take them all out of the cylinders, turn it upside down on the valve cover, and run some ground wires over to the negative battery terminal to the spark plugs. And if you don't have a good, clean, hot spark, it's probably this module, new or not. And I would say, I mean, from what I'm seeing here, getting one that's listed as an SEM brand seems to be the way to go. So, 1999 Saab 9.3 2.0 turbo. I think that goes for like the 1.8, 2.3. It lists a number of them that have the same, they call it a direct ignition cassette. This part here. So yep, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Hard right. Gotta have Jack Daniels, always. Scott's over here cutting wood. This is our makeshift fire pit. Bacon and eggs and biscuits on this here fantabulous fire.
Alright guys, be sure and hit that like button if you like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment if there's anything you'd like to see in the near future. Thanks. See ya.